Hanging off the fiscal cliff, John Boehner, the top Republican in Congress, dashes hopes of a budget deal. Germany will hold its nose and vote to approve the Greek bailout today as politicians fret about the true cost of aid. And British consumer confidence surges to an 18-month high, giving Finance Minister George Osborne some relief before he sets out plans to revive the stagnant economy next week. So, those US budget talks once again in stalemate. Speaker of the US House of Representatives, John Boehner, says there has been no substantive progress made in the last 2 weeks. The euro pared some of its strong gains on the news, but with Spanish and Italian bond yields so low, it has gone back above $1.30. I'm joined now by Adam Cole, Head of FX Research at RBC Capital Markets. Adam, we've got the US fiscal cliff talks and also pretty dire German retail sales figures earlier this morning, yet the euro's still above 130.
Yes, indeed, and I think it's evidence once again of just how much bad news is in the price for the euro, and as a result of that, the hurdle for negative news driving the currency down is still very high. Our best guess is that the counterfactual, where the euro might be if the crisis hadn't happened, is that it would be somewhere between 165 and 170. And I think that gives you a measure of just how big the risk premium is, and as a result, how much news it takes to get the currency moving down.
And as I said there, Germany's, the Bundestag will approve the Greek aid. I mean, that's a formality. But I imagine Angela Merkel will be hoping this is the last time she has to go to Parliament before the elections next year and not have to do it again in, say, 6 months' time.
That's right, and I think our best guess is that that's probably the case. Certainly we don't think the Greek saga is over, and I think the arithmetic that shows Greek debt now being sustainable is very optimistic. We do think a further restructuring will be required, but I think what they have done is probably enough to put that off until the other side of the German election. So hopefully Mrs Merkel will get her wish in that respect. OK, and very quickly on the euro, where do you see the euro by the end of the year? We think, on balance, it probably builds on recent gains, so to 132 or so is a realistic target from here. OK, and finally, we've had a lot of numbers, a lot of economic data from Japan overnight, the main one being inflation, or perhaps better said, deflation. Is this another nail in the yen's coffin? Not in our view, no. I think what the market believes, and a very widely bought into story, is that the story after the election will be much more proactive policy to deal with deflation. And actually, if you look at the last 20 years of history in Japan, I think that's a lot less likely than the markets perceive. We think the government will be a lot weaker than is expected, and the inertia in policy is a lot more difficult to overcome. So I think the yen bearish story, which has built over the last month and a half, ultimately we will be disappointed again. OK, Adam, thank you very much. Other economic news on Reuters at this hour. French steelmaker ArcelorMittal plans to close 2 of its blast furnaces in France, unless a buyer is found by tomorrow's deadline. The plan has caused a furious row between politicians and the owners of the plant, with the government threatening nationalisation. British consumer confidence unexpectedly picked up to an 18-month high in November. Finance Minister George Osborne may take some cheer from the data ahead of what is expected to be a difficult autumn statement next week. Elsewhere, India's economy unexpectedly slowed in the second quarter. Here's Reuters' Tara Joseph in Hong Kong. Tara, India's economy on for its slowest rate of annual growth for a decade. What's behind that?
That's right, Jamie. One has to ask at this point, where is the I in BRIC? Because India has really showed that it just cannot pick up pace. Many were expecting that we might see 6% growth in the latest reading, and it's below what people had expected at 5.3%. It's manufacturing slowdown, it's farming, it's political policies that just aren't able to move the pieces beyond where India needs to go at this point that's holding the country back. Nevertheless, analysts are starting to say things have got so bad that for the equity markets next year, there's only one way it can go, which is up. So there is a little bit more bullishness coming back to the market as far as India is concerned, but these numbers not helping at the moment.
So a weak economy is bullish for the market. That's interesting. And in China, some signs rather that the Chinese are losing their taste for US-style fast food.
Well, no, I don't think they're losing their taste for U.S. fast food. Sales at Yum Brands, which is KFC, McDonald's, and Pizza Hut, stellar growth that we've seen in China, along with other Western food brands. But there is a sign that sort of growth is slowing down. In the second quarter, half of total revenue for Yum globally was in China. Because of higher prices and what we've seen as a slowdown in China, that is expected to come out of the market. There should be a little bit less growth. It might improve going into the next year as China starts to pick up steam. But for these fast food producers like Yum Brands, China has been a miracle market, and maybe some of the steam is actually coming off now. But not the taste for fast food in China or these Western brands, that's for sure.
OK, Tara, have a great weekend. Thank you. The top world news story on Reuters this morning. Palestinians have been celebrating after the UN General Assembly, by an overwhelming majority, approved the de facto recognition of the sovereign state of Palestine. Israel's envoy to the UN, though, said the decision pushed the peace process backwards, while the US called the move unfortunate. Egypt's Islamist-run assembly has backed a draft constitution, including a measure to keep Sharia law as the main source of legislation. The move comes after the Constitutional Court said it would rule on Sunday whether the assembly should be dissolved. Syrian rebels have cut access to Damascus airport and several airlines have cancelled flights. The internet and some telephone lines are down, the worst communications outage in 20 months of conflict. That's it for now. I'll leave you with our pick of the day, which today comes from Reuters photographer José Manuel Ribeiro and shows dock workers protesting against job cuts with firecrackers in front of the Portuguese Parliament in Lisbon. I'm Jamie McGeever. This is Reuters.